Good day and welcome. Today, we're starting a series on an important topic in history, the European colonization of Africa in the late 19th century. We'll explore Africa before European colonization. The Berlin Conference of 1884. Causes of colonization. Patterns of colonization. Why European powers colonized Africa quickly. Results of colonization. The Ashanti Kingdom. Today, we will discuss Africa before its colonization. What did Africa look like in 1800? We'll take a look at the map and learn about the diverse societies and kingdoms that existed. Stick around until the end for some thought-provoking questions to test your understanding. Challenge yourself and see how well you've grasped the material. It's a fantastic way to boost your confidence. Please don't forget to like and subscribe so that you don't miss our weekly uploads. Let's get started. What is the scramble for Africa? Europeans began to explore continents outside of Europe from the 15th century in search of trade and profit. They had developed new technologies of navigation, better ships, and better weapons during the European Renaissance. But the European countries did not only explore and trade, they also conquered and colonized on every continent. This started a process that would change the world forever. During the late 19th century, European powers conquered and colonized the land and the lives of most of the people of Africa. Colonialism is the occupation and control of one nation by another. That scramble for Africa refers to the rapid invasion, occupation, colonization, and annexation of African territory by European powers during the period between 1881 and 1914. This period is marked by a competitive rush among European countries to establish their dominance and claim vast areas of the African continent, leading to the partitioning of Africa into colonies controlled by European nations. The colonization of Africa became known as the scramble for Africa. The word scramble has many meanings, but in this case, it means to compete frantically, in a crazy manner, in order to get something that other people want. The European colonization of Africa in the late 19th century had a significant and lasting impact on the continent and its people. The European powers brought their own political, economic, and cultural systems, which often conflicted with the traditional ways of life of the African people. By 1914, 7 European countries, Britain, France, Portugal, Germany, Belgium, Italy, and Spain, had claimed control over nearly the entire African continent. Only the areas that are today known as Ethiopia and Liberia remained independent. But before we look at the colonization of Africa, it is important to study Africa before its colonization. Before European colonization, the vast majority of the African continent was firmly under African rule. Up until the late 19th century, Africa was governed by Africans, with a rich pre-colonial history that goes back thousands of years before the arrival of Europeans. Archaeological evidence shows that the Nok culture, in what is now Nigeria, was a thriving kingdom from 1000 BCE to 500 AD. The Nok culture is renowned for its early iron use and distinctive terracotta sculptures depicting human figures. There were many powerful kingdoms all over Africa, including the kingdoms of Mali, Songhai, Ghana, Great Zimbabwe, and Mapungubwe. These rich and powerful kingdoms in Africa had complex societies that lived by hunting, gathering, herding, and farming for thousands of years before European colonization. These kingdoms were well organized, had political autonomy, independence, were technologically advanced for their time, had education systems, practiced agriculture, and had rich cultural and religious beliefs. Like all societies, relationships between African societies were sometimes peaceful and sometimes involved conflicts. This map shows Africa before colonization. At this stage, there were over 1,000 indigenous cultures and regions in Africa, and the borders between tribes or kingdoms were mainly determined by cultural and language factors. People were settled throughout the continent. Up until the late 19th century, Africa was ruled by Africans, and there were no fixed borders between kingdoms, states, and empires. Please pause the video and identify the location of different pre-colonial African kingdoms on the map. Alright, let's move on and talk about the characteristics of pre-colonial African kingdoms. Social and political organization. Pre-colonial African states had various forms of organization, but many shared similarities. Most were built on communalism, where people lived together and shared possessions and responsibilities. They were self-governing, with all members of the community participating in the daily running of affairs. While not everyone could be a leader, they could still influence their leaders. Typically, a chief, aided by a council of advisors, ran the tribe's affairs, and decisions usually required unanimous agreement. Land was held communally and could not be bought or sold, although individuals could trade cattle and other items. Trade. Pre-colonial African trade systems were well developed. In North Africa, trade routes extended across the Sahara Desert to Europe and eastwards to Arabia, India, and China. In southern Africa, the Mapungubwe region was a major trade center, trading with East Africa, Egypt, Persia, Iran, India, and China. Archaeological evidence shows that trade items included gold, iron, copper, pottery, wood, and ivory. Education. The Timbuktu manuscripts demonstrate a very advanced level of education in North Africa. In sub-Saharan Africa, traditional forms of education were emphasized, with cultural values and skills being transmitted orally from generation to generation. This oral history tradition ensured the preservation of the group's history and essential survival skills. Technology and craftsmanship. Pre-colonial Africans had the technology to create practical and decorative items. Gold, copper, and iron artifacts indicate advanced mining and crafting skills. The famous gold rhinoceros from Mapungubwe is a prime example, though its purpose, whether ornamental or religious, remains unknown. Cities like Timbuktu, Mali, and Great Zimbabwe showcase impressive architectural and building skills. Agriculture. Many regions in Africa had fertile soil, making agriculture the mainstay of their economy. In Mapungubwe, fertile topsoil from flooding supported agriculture, and evidence shows they kept cattle, sheep, goats, and dogs. Remains of storage huts indicate they cultivated millet, sorghum, and cotton. Culture and religion. Africa's cultures and religions were diverse. Many religious practices included ancestor worship and rituals linked to significant events like the arrival of rains, harvesting, or going to war. These practices often required the services of a healer or diviner who could communicate with ancestors, heal the sick, and predict the future. In North Africa, Islam was the dominant religion due to the influence of Arab traders. We've come to the end of today's session, but don't leave just yet. Before we go, challenge yourself with the following questions. Pause the video as you go to give yourself time to think. This is a crucial section to reinforce what you've learnt. And get ready for the next video, where we'll dive into the Berlin Conference of 1884. What was the Berlin Conference, and how did it formalize the scramble for Africa? We'll explore the map that shows how European powers divided Africa. You won't want to miss it. Join us next time for this exciting journey into history. Be sure to check out the link in the description for more videos. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss our weekly uploads. Thank you for watching, and see you soon.